Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Messaging Maven. And today's a very special episode for me because behind the scenes, one of the people who is, who can consider the Messaging Maven as her baby is Katria, who actually runs the community for us. And today, because the topic itself is Black Friday, multi-channel marketing, and everything else associated with it, I thought that there would be no better person to actually talk about the multiple market activities associated with it. So, how do you feel? How does it feel being on this side of the table for once?
Oh, well, first of all, welcome everyone. I gotta say, I wouldn't have thought I'm gonna be nervous, first of all, because it's so easy, to be on the back end of the things. But at the same time, I feel like it's a great experience and I'm happy to be here. So it's all good.
Lovely. Very nice. And I mean, it's also interesting probably to review the outlines, the comments, the suggestions you yourself made and then actually present them for once.
Yeah, definitely.
Coolio. So as I mentioned, today's topic, Black Friday, multi-channel marketing and everything else associated with that. So although we're talking about Black Friday as essentially a day, Black Friday itself has become, somewhat of a cultural phenomenon in a way at this point in time. It's no longer just a day. It's a whole host of, it's kind of like a new marketing season in a way, like the pre-Christmas other big holiday. It's one of the days that, especially in the messaging industry, is one of the most well-known marketing campaign areas throughout the year. Most of peak traffic is usually made during that time as well. So it makes sense to talk about the things also that surround that, like things like Cyber Monday or Small Business Saturday, et cetera, et cetera. Everything has a name nowadays. So if anybody has any questions surrounding to Black Friday, anything else associated with marketing activities, do let us know. We'll get to the questions and everything else related to that as well, because there's a lot to cover. It's a fairly broad topic in and of itself as well. So, talking about Black Friday, the interesting thing is, where the history comes from and everything surrounding that. Now, not to dive into it too deeply, first time Black Friday was actually mentioned was in the late 1800s, where it was associated with a large Wall Street crash. Later than that, in the 50s, it was also utilized to I think it was in Philadelphia in the US, to describe the events happening post-Thanksgiving where there was a big shopping spree, police was called out, it was a bit of a pandemonium after that. But nowadays it's associated essentially with a shopping holiday.
Yeah.
Very broadly, considering it is a day where, due to one or another reason in the States, people have a surplus of cash, but everywhere else and around the world, that doesn't actually necessarily apply. So it is mostly a shopping holiday, specifically related to just one area of time that associates with that.
Exactly.
So stats, Black Friday.
There's a lot. So when I was also researching the topic and just diving a little bit into the Black Friday, there's so much to cover. And sadly, most of the statistics, they are based on the States because, as you said, it originates from the States, but also based on Europe. It's grown immensely. And especially with COVID happening and everything, Black Friday is just very, very big here. So just when I was looking at some numbers, and this is based barely just only on the States. So regarding Forbes, $9.12 billion were spent online in 2022 on Black Friday. That's huge. Mm-hmm. That's a lot. And then just the record, of all these like Cyber Monday, Black Friday, all these shopping festivities, 196.7 million consumers and customers purchased something on that day. So this just goes to show how big it actually is, how many people participate in it, and how many people actually wait for it to happen as well. So there was this study that was based on Europe as well, and it said that 90% of consumers in this particular study, it wasn't a big one, but still, 90% of these people had shopped on Black Friday. Mm-hmm. Again, it just goes to show that if you're, a service provider or an e-commerce shop, or even just a regular, physical shop, Black Friday is a place where everybody's doing deals and a lot of people are expecting it too.
Yeah, as well as if we're talking about the actual US consumer base, you talked about the Forbes research that highlighted 190 plus million consumers purchasing. For reference, US has 330 million people in it.
Exactly.
So you're talking about more than half of the population actually doing something. And then when you start excluding, certain levels of elderly or kids or stuff like that, you actually get to a very substantial portion of the entire consumer base as well. And that's what also makes it important, because that day is no longer only a US holiday, but it is also now sort of situated in the minds of people as something that is very commonly taken into consideration as a day that they might shop, or a day that they're expecting some discounts, some offers, some things like that. And it's kind of like a new type of a holiday that has sort of been brought over. In a way, in Estonia, we have mardipäev and kadripäev, but now, very surprisingly, what has become much more popular in certain places is Halloween.
Yeah, exactly.
So you can actually see some, former transitions or some former traditions be replaced by new ones in a way as well. So it is important to be around for that time and take heed of the impulse or the willingness to purchase, especially considering that post-COVID, a lot of e-commerce purchases have moved online, and people are much more now used to shopping online, buying stuff online. So everything in terms of like digital marketing requires that input from there as well.
And not only the e-commerce part, which I think it's quite important, is also the services. Banks are often offering things for Black Friday offers. Lenders are offering things for Black Friday, So it really, really has gone from just being a shopping holiday and just being merely in the shops or on e-commerce platforms to going all around to, even medical institutions, get, some procedure for half a price off or something only on Black Friday. So it's really, really incredible, actually, how it has spread so much and how many different companies use it.
Yeah, and then there's this also this sort of like a cultural phenomenon behind it that creates this sort of, comparison point as well. It's like, hey, I bought this yesterday on Black Friday for this much off. I saved 80% on a procedure or whatever, 80% on like a new bike for me, biking gear, right? So there's also this cultural phenomenon behind it where you start sharing and everybody tries to find the best deal possible and then share, look how much I saved type of a deal, rather than how much I spent, but how much I saved. That's that idea behind it as well. So channels, stuff related to that. My favorite topic altogether, how powerful is SMS actually within the context of Black Friday? We've shared these sort of data points a lot of times beforehand. It's one of the go-to metrics for anybody. What's the open rate of SMS? 98% within the first 3 minutes, right? What is the actual click-through rate, ranging between 17 and 49% depending on the campaign, so very, very high. Sort of conversion rate, depending again on the campaign, between 10 and 20% in terms of its pure nominal numbers. And those numbers themselves sort of matter very little unless you have a sort of like a comparison point. And the easiest point to actually compare it to is not just the effectiveness of it, but also what is the cost per click. One of the best things I like sort of comparing it to. And, you would compare it to something like Google Ads, for example. And if you take into consideration that the average, even if you Google it yourself, the average cost of a Google Ad click is between 2 and 4 euros or dollars. Currently quite the same in terms of their currency pricing. So 2 or 4 euros or dollars. But if you take SMS into consideration, you have to think about, okay, so what's the click-through rate between 17 and 49%? Average global SMS price is about 6 to 7 cents. So you're talking about a click cost of between 14, 15 cents to at max 40 cents. So 2 to 4 full euros versus tens of cents. So the cost per click is that much lower. And then, of course, when you combine it with the effect of it, if you're talking about, comparison that to email, where you're talking about, conversion points of 1% or less, and your actual real conversion is like 17, especially if you use it correctly. Use it for, abandoned cart notifications that are always my favorite ones to bring out.
And not a lot of people use it correctly.
And not a lot of people use it correctly, right? But if you think about it, 17% conversion on average on abandoned cart notifications versus email where you get a couple of percentage points. And if you think about during Black Friday, combine that with the amount of money people usually spend, their average expenditure on your email, on your platform, is going to be orders of magnitude bigger than it usually is, which means that the customer lifetime value equivalent to that purchase is also that much higher. So when you then they're willing to spend this much more, and this is how much more effective this channel is. When you combine those, the exponential potential loss that you're taking in, or potential missed opportunity that you're taking in because you're not using that channel, can be quite immense. And that's why we always talk about this channel and how sort of effective it is, especially compared to other channels. But, as we've talked about before, it's not an this or that game.
Exactly.
It's an and game. How do you use email and business messaging? How do you use Google Ads, LinkedIn, Facebook, email, and business messaging? It's all about using them together and how to truly build an omni-channel approach or a multi-channel approach.
Yeah. Exactly. And with all of the statistics, as you said, the Google Ads pricing, it changes constantly, So I think what's really important to understand in the context of Black Friday and using SMS. So SMS price lies flat. It doesn't change much. Okay, it changes sometimes, but usually it's a fixed price, So you pay for one SMS, you pay for two, that's it. But when it comes to, Google Ads or Facebook Ads or any kind of advertising, these are usually auction-based, which means there's a lot of bidding going on. And that can actually drive up the costs during these kind of very saturated events like Black Friday as well. Because there's more demand, the cost raises, So it's really kind of, as you said, comparing these channels, but it's never putting one to work and, leaving the other ones out. It's, as you said, multi-channel, omni-channel. So I think a lot of people don't understand really the multi and omni-channel difference, which I know we said this event is multi-channel, but I think we have to talk about what is multi-channel, what is omni-channel here.
Tell me, what's the difference between multi and omni?
Oh, God. Okay, can you take this question? Actually, no problem. So I understand that omni-channel is a word that's sometimes scary for people, that it doesn't really, resonate, and multi-channel is more easily approachable, I would say. So I can say that all omni-channel experiences can be based on multi-channel, because omni-channel essentially means that you are guiding your customer through different channels without creating a lot of friction. And you put these channels to use all together. Whereas in multi-channel, you can use all of the same channels as in multi-channels, but they might not, compare to each other, or they not be very comprehensive to each other. So I think that's the main difference between those. And really, you can have like amazing marketing or amazing, teams putting together everything on every channel. But if these channels don't work together, if these don't guide your customer through a journey, it's not an omni-channel. So nailing the omni-channel is a bit different than multi-channel, I think.
So it's essentially omni-channel is using multiple channels in combination, and multi-channel is just using multiple channels.
Exactly.
However, which way, shape, or form, but if they're not building to a singular customer journey that's combined between those channels, then that's multi-channel. But if they are combined, if it's an intricate mesh of different messaging for your clients, then you would consider it omni-channel. Exactly. And I guess, omni-channel is kind of the panacea that people are also aiming towards, because a omni-channel approach towards marketing gives you so many more touch points of different varying weight, giving you, soft reminders, harder reminders, more in your face, less in your face. You'll have invasive, less invasive things. So you can really balance out the customer journey to its, optimal effect. But we're going to the actual topic that we kind of know most about, which is business messaging. Why should you use business messaging in your omni-channel?
Yeah. So one thing I want to highlight about this all multi-channel, omni-channel mix is that kind of everyone is doing multi-channel anyway. You're using all of your digital channels, not in just Black Friday marketing, but also in your regular marketing. So email campaigns, social media, advertising, influencers, UGC is very popular these days as well. So user generated content. So everyone is doing that. And it creates kind of the sea of sameness, as Davi likes to say, So Davi is our marketing manager, by the way. But intentionally, what it is it's good to have SMS in that mix because it gives it a twist. Not everybody is using SMS. The stats say it's super low, Probably 90% of your competitors are not using SMS in their marketing. Yet it's a channel that reaches 98% of your customers. So adding this just allows you to really, really stand out in some way. And it's quite a real challenge. So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it gives you an opportunity to also mix up the kind of the way you promote things a little bit more because, SMS lends itself most to small, short bursts of information, rather compared to like an email where you're probably going to be putting more text, more visual in front of a person. Of course, if you start talking about rich messaging, then you're talking about, building carousels and call to action buttons and a million other options. So the option of creating a very engaging sort of campaign on a rich channel is also possible. We've had our own clients do that on Viber, get 3 extra results to compare to SMS. Compared to the results we talk 3x, exactly. Right? Immense channel. But it's, of course, more difficult to set up. So in this context, just using basic SMS and understanding where it is useful to use is incredibly important. But before we get to that, data. Customer data. When do you collect it? How do you collect it? A telephone number is something that you're going to need to ask for. Yeah. Plus, you're going to have to use a specific consent in order to use that for any marketing activities. How do you go about that?
Yeah, so essentially, if you have the numbers, it's not enough. As you said, you need to have consent. SMS basically, in a term of what it is, it works a lot similarly to, email. When you ask for someone's email, you ask for consent to communicate them via email. So you have to do the same thing with SMS. So when it comes to preparing for campaigns like Black Friday, you have to start collecting these contexts quite early on. So and most of the time it's not even, I start now for Black Friday and I stop and I'm not going to use this content pool anymore, but it's more about continuing to do it. So once you start, you don't really stop. When it comes to really, really Black Friday, I recommend starting at least 6 weeks in advance. So you can, get these basic touch points with your customers and you can get your key database. And also it has a really, really big advantage because if you start collecting the database, your customers using your product are going to get used to you and only your company sending these SMSs, let's say. So when others jump on that train, your competitors, who are probably offering the same services, they're not going to have that part of the market anymore because you are already dominating in that channel in this market. So I think this is about not when to start, but it's about not stopping at all.
Okay, makes sense. Especially in the context of like Black Friday. So which activities are you going to tie this into? Which platforms are you going to put it, head to head against? How does this function? What's the practical gain you can get from it?
Yeah. So I think before we really jump how to do it in the Black Friday, I think what's important to understand is that, Google ads, Facebook ads, or Meta in general, LinkedIn in general, they change their algorithms all the time. Also, some weeks or some months, maybe your ads don't perform as well as they can, Mm-hmm. At the same time, as you said, email, when it's successful, its open rate is around 20%. Open rates are low on email. And if your email is not that good, it ends up in spam. You're not going to reach your client that well. So why it's that important is because SMS is an extra channel for you and it gets there. It gets to your customers really, really fast, There was this study that I read that said that an average American picks up their phone 144 times a day.
Lord.
144 times you're going like this all the time. So this basically means you have 144 possibilities of that person seeing your text message. So, and this is where I want to state the Black Friday fact here, how you can use it the easiest way. You send before even everybody else starts. their campaigns, let's say maybe even 4 weeks before Black Friday, to your key database, you send a message saying, hey, we have Black Friday coming up. So because when you're doing ads, or if you're sending emails, if you're doing some social media campaigns, the next day, everybody else will be doing the same thing as you are. And if you have 10 same ads from 10 different, offers, but it's all the same basically. So everybody's monitoring everyone, everybody's doing the same advertisement. So it's really hard to stand out there. But SMS is like a gated channel, I would say, in that sense. So once you start, let's say 4 weeks in advance, your competitors will have no idea you started 4 weeks in advance. So this already gives you an advantage before even the day starts.
There's also this interesting thing about that where when you prep for 4 weeks in advance and start, sending 4 weeks in advance, when you start communicating to your service provider, you'll also find potentially that the process of sending in that market actually requires pre-registration. It requires setup, think France, for example, that requires you to set up opt-in and opt-out features rather within that text message. So it's going to require some configuration. If you want to start sending out a campaign one day before Black Friday, you're probably not going to always be able to do that in every single market, which means that even if you're using business messaging, using it for OTPs, for example, or reminders or some transactional stuff, for example, and want to transition into marketing, you're going to find yourself in a situation where 2 days beforehand is not going to be enough time to actually incorporate it into your sort of system. Maybe not even a week in advance is enough to actually incorporate it into your channel as well. So even if you see a competitor sending it out, 2 days in advance, a week in advance, for example, you might actually not be able to do anything about it or really actually get into the game early enough to be there where they're there.
Exactly. And but on the other side, if you're sending it out, okay, maybe your competitors, they will see it. What are they going to do? They're not going to have time to do it anymore, Yeah. So.
It's a channel again, and the channel needs to be learned as well. It's not that easy. Plus, having all of the databases, the numbers, everything else related to that requires a fair bit of work behind it. But you're doing that work to get that effect, and it's like a strategic tool that you use, like a precision weapon in a way, where you're just sort of like, an email is pretty much like an artillery barrage. You just fire it out and it goes anywhere. An SMS is like a sniper's bullet that hits exactly where you want it to hit, because 98% of the time it's going to be open. Yeah. So you get your results so much more accurately than anything else. But okay, so let's get into like more practical stuff. Yeah. What are you putting in the first text message?
Okay, so I would say there's 2 things that you have to take into consideration in the very first text message. Let's say you're sending out the Black Friday campaign. First of all, make it personal. Use the name. If you receive a text message that has your name on it, you already feel that, okay, this company actually cares about me. They actually see that, I'm part of their database. They actually know who I am, and they want to offer me something. So this is one thing. Second thing, which I have to admit you have to be careful with, is branded links. So I have this very good friend of mine, Daniel Selde, and he actually gave me a tip last year, and how they did in their company, some of the SMS, was including in their branded link VIP. So your email says, hi, Uku, here's your VIP link to our offers, and it's vip.messente.com, for example. So this already creates a sense of exclusivity, If you receive that, you're like, wow, okay, I belong to the very exclusive customers of that company. But why I'm saying you have to be careful with that is because of all the scam going around. So this is something you talked a lot about as well, is that keep your links, constant, keep the branding constant on them. And I really, really actually agree with that. But then again, if you have communicated to your customer that they are their VIP and they can expect that kind of communication from you, that kind of VIP treatment, then it's okay to send an SMS like that, let's say.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is one of the points that I, talked about on LinkedIn as well, or mentioning at least, is like, why is it important to also learn from scammers, or what you can learn from scammers? It's an unfortunate wording, do as the scammers do. But the point behind it is quite simple. The reason why scam has gotten more effective is because they've gotten better. And if you look at examples of scam that you get these days, very personalized. Even the URL sometimes is personalized. You can find a URL link that has the person's name in it. Like that level of detail, not just having, hi, first name as your template and then sending it out, but also having the URL be customized to that person. Now, what makes it sort of more difficult, or why the idea of, VIPdomainname.com, sending it out, why it can be an issue, is that because whenever you add a sort of a mutation to your original domain name, you're essentially opening up the potential for somebody to buy a variant of that. So, you take vip.messente.com. Most probably, I could then go out and buy vip-messente.com, vip-messente.com, vip:-messente.com. So you could buy all sorts of alternatives to that particular domain for yourself for your own nefarious purposes. But it really comes down to customer communication as well. If you very clearly communicated that only these types of pieces of content will be going out with these specific templates, you'll be much more insulated against, people really reacting to it and being actually victims of those types of scams as well. And you also need to take into consideration that there are definitely certain platforms for which the potential for getting scammed is higher, and those for which it's lower. If your e-commerce shop is asking for your banking details, you're going to be significantly more curious, and probably you're not even going to care about that because the transactional value isn't that high. But if it's related to your bank or a financial institution, you're going to probably pay heed a little bit more. So it's also not just about the content and the formations of that content, but also how you communicate, how you do everything around that, what business you're in, et cetera, yada, yada. Basically, look at what the scammers do and try to emulate it, because realistically, they're getting better and better and better at it most of the time. Like the interesting thing is you're competing against your competitors that all have resources. Scammers are competing against national institutions, against police, against the services, against everybody in the world. If you're thinking about the competition they go head to head against, then they've got some, pretty proper competition. So when they're effective, that is effective for nearly everybody. Just, try to not open yourself up to pretty much copying them and then creating even a larger world of trouble by doing so. So think it through a little bit,
It's quite like, the greatest programmers are the hackers. Or the previous hackers, who've been hacking the websites and stuff like that. And they come to work for you to actually, be good or do good. They are absolute geniuses, You would never even come up with these things that these people come up with, So, and I think it's even when we're coming back to when to send the SMS, and what to put in it. As we said, that the first step before you even start sending is collecting the data, And when you're collecting the data, this is a perfect place to communicate to your customers, what are we going to be sending to you and what are we not going to be sending to you. So this is where you can actually say, hey, this is what the link will look like. On Black Friday, it will have Black Friday in front of it, or it will have VIP in front of it, On other days, it will just be our name. Nothing else. Don't click on anything else. So you can really, really communicate on that. And then when you take a step further from that, so you sent out the SMS, and let's say they click on the link, and that link also is personalized. So you click on the link, it opens up, it has your name, and it has offers really designated to you with the dynamic tag, basically. So this is where SMS really, really starts to, incorporate in this omni-channel, because now you're guiding your customer from signing up to clicking on the link to the website to creating a purchase. So this is, I think it's absolutely genius, because when you do it, let's say only through email, and everybody's sending out emails on Black Friday, even not on Black Friday. If I'm looking at my email right now, I think my spam folder or just the promotions folder, it has, I can say maybe over 2,000 promotional messages that I've never opened. Never. So you don't want to get in there, especially on a Black Friday. You don't want to be one of those who are in this email list that nobody opens. So
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that as well. And I guess one of the more important PSAs or public service announcements to put out there, only share your data with the companies that you actually want to share them with. Where your data is very public and very open, a scammer can create that custom campaign and go after you as well. Yep. That's why share your data with care. If you want personalization, choose who you're going to talk to. Okay, anyways, any other tips, trips, suggestions, anything else people should know in terms of Black Friday campaigns, etc.?
So there's quite a lot still to this, and when we were prepping also it was not to say overwhelming in that sense, but I have to admit and I have to warn is that it is overwhelming to find the right way to do these things, and it is overwhelming to find the right channels to put your SMS to. So we really have to think like, what is SMS serving in that situation? Is it to guide to the website? Is it to trigger something on the website, maybe some retargeting ads, maybe an email? Maybe it's gonna only act not even on top of funnel, but maybe it's on the bottom of funnel as an abandoned cart rate notification. So when people say when people pick up their phone 144 times per day, you will see the SMS that, hey, you have some stuff left in the cart. Maybe you want to, finish your purchase before Black Friday ends, instead of sending it out as an email. So really think where it makes sense to include SMS and what do you want to achieve with that. But there are a couple things more. So just to make, I think, in the marketing point to stand out is to make all of your client touchpoints Black Friday themed. Change your emails, change the email flows, change maybe your, cart, how it looks like, change the SMS, how it looks like, stuff like that. So if you have a chat, for example, on your website, make it Black Friday themed. Create the sense that you really, really have put effort into that. This is something that I would say. And I think one thing that's important to talk about is also when to send out. So very practical thing that I also learned is when we take example of email, just to compare to SMS again. Everybody, let's say, sends out the email at 9 a.m. Or you send before 9, you want to be clever, you send before 9, which is not very clever, but you just want to be there before everyone else. On things like email or SMS, where it is chronological, it doesn't make sense to rush in that sense. So if you think the email and the SMSs that you get, they're in chronological order. So the top one is the last one you received. So maybe you don't want to send it out first thing in the morning, the SMS or the email. Maybe you want to send it out, during noontime. So there was another study that said that people usually shop during their work time, So.
Yep.
Yeah.
We've all done it.
We've all done it.
Probably. Most likely.
Yeah. Or you book your doctor appointments or your bank appointments during actually your work time, because this is when you remember these things. You have life before work, you have life after work, kids, your hobbies, whatever you're doing. So you don't really have time to do these things during your, let's say, free time. So you're going to put it in the work time anyway. Everybody's doing that, So use that for your advantage. You can send it out. Send it out noontime, when people check their phones. And you can check the demographics and Google the demographics. When do people check their phone or check their email the most? And use these things. So if everybody's saying, 9, you send it out 9:05 and you're going to be on top.
Yeah, send it out 11:34, right before you go to lunch, but still with enough time to make a few purchases online.
Exactly, right? So
Top tip.
So think, when are you the least productive at your work? When are you just scrolling through social media? When are you looking at your emails? When are you just, shopping on platforms? And this is where you want to be. And this is when you want to be there as well.
Yeah.
And I think, my last tip for it would be that look at what the giants are doing. Why is Apple so successful? The whole business model of Apple is basically an omni-channel strategy. I am using MacBook. I'm using an iPhone. I'm not going to switch off from it. because it's so easy to integrate those things. I'm always kind of in the customer journey of Apple. If I want to access something on my laptop that's actually on my phone, I can do it like that. I'm not going to go to Android because I cannot, seamlessly integrate these two. So look at what your favorite brands are doing and just copy it. You don't have to, invent the bicycle, basically.
Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense as well. I am one of those cross-platform heretics who uses both an Android and a Mac. Most of the time it works perfectly fine, I'll have you know. Anyways, okay, so conclusions. What do we conclude? You basically use SMS and do it smart?
Yeah, that's it.
Cool, it was a good conclusion.
We can go home.
yeah. Anyways, yeah. In general, the point of being, we've talked about why SMS is such a good channel to use. Anyways, it's just something that think it through, prep it beforehand, and use it because it just has an effect. And it's also a differentiator because, as you said, there's so many of your competitors that probably aren't using it, so you can get to a different position. I'll draw an example actually from Estonia, a practical example. One of the most known shoe shops in Estonia, which is Weekend Shoes, is also one of the few ones who sends business messages. And they're very effective in terms of their marketing activities, in terms of getting people buying. Yeah. That's why they're one of the biggest e-commerce platforms in Estonia for buying shoes. And you can bet your bottom dollar there's going to be a big campaign for Black Friday going out, and they're going to make massive sales as they usually do.
Exactly.
So, utilize it.
Yeah. Just figure out the channels that you actually need to use. So I don't always believe in using every channel for everything. It don't have to be everywhere at the same time, but really just analyze the data and look at the numbers. Where does it make sense to be? So if I would have to put together a Black Friday campaign, I would use email, SMS, and my webpage. Maybe some social media activities as well. Retargeting probably would be a good mix into it as well. But going through this whole bells and whistles on so many different channels, it's going to overwhelm your customer and it's not going to make the customer journey a smooth experience. So maybe it's only my, how I want to be communicated with. But the more the company can make sure that they're there for me so that I don't actually notice it and I just simultaneously use their products, the better it is. It's the same like with Apple.
Yeah, I guess I'm gonna have to, delete the TikToks and the YouTube shorts and the reels I had planned for Black Friday and my LinkedIn retargeting campaigns and everything. I'm just gonna send a text message for people to follow me. Anyways, questions. Let's see if we have any good questions.
Yes. Okay.
Could you elaborate on the advantages and disadvantages of using SMS marketing compared to other channels like email or social media during Black Friday? Let's start from the very first one. So advantages, disadvantages. We talked about the advantages. One, key advantages being reach, cost per click, conversion, higher than other channels. Disadvantages, it is a more invasive channel. You're going to have to be aware of the fact that you can send 10 emails. People will get less pissed off if they get 3 SMS.
Yeah, because they don't see the emails.
Exactly. They don't see the emails. Exactly. They don't see it. But SMS gets there. Yeah. And because it gets on your phone screen and because most of the time people haven't turned off their notifications for text messages, they're also going to get that notification. So if you send, 5 text messages pre-Black Friday and 6 messages on Black Friday, you can bet your bottom dollar that particular number is going to end up in your blacklist pool. Yes. Be careful. It is not a channel you can spam on. It's a channel that you have to be careful with because it's high intent, high touch point. You're going to need to be careful about it because most people, they do not want to get a bunch of text messages. They're fine with a bunch of emails though.
Yeah. But I mean, it also kind of, when you receive a text message, and I think this is the advantage of it as well. It's the psychological fact. I am excited actually when a company sends me an SMS, but at the same time, I receive the same email from them and I'm like, I'm not going to even open it.
I wonder if it has anything to do with the fact that you work for a business messaging company. But let's glance over that fact. Let's go to the next one.
Okay. There you go.
Hey, Uku and Katria, perhaps this one is more on the technical side, but I'm curious how companies that handle SMS traffic, such as yourself, prepare to support your customers for Black Friday bulk message volumes? That is a very good question. So first and foremost, nobody on support gets a vacation day on Black Friday. I'm not, I'm kind of kidding, but I'm also not kidding.
It's 24/7.
It's the main thing is that first you have to be organizationally ready for that. So this means that for that day, in terms of pure personnel, we will have most of our connectivity team working, monitoring the actual routing, the routing performance, dealing with any of the issues that might pop up to be ready to load balance, essentially. Manual load balancing on top of what the platform itself does. So, for Black Friday, we specifically add more power to the platform, more servers, more backend work to specifically support multiple X of volume that, you get on a normal day. So we specifically add for that. We also specifically add from a technical perspective, more TPS. So talking with partners, talking more with operators where we need more. Essentially, we need a bigger pipe because you're getting more volume, so you need a bigger pipe. So we'll ask for a bigger pipe. And also, yes, support will be there the entire day. We'll be monitoring things more actively. But it's not just about Black Friday itself, but because the activities are constantly happening around that. You have to be ready for the volume from a purely technological perspective as well, because this isn't just a question of, what our platform can do, but you also then have to have this actual partner network where your pipe might be big. But when you push it through, you'll have a straw on the other end and it's not going to go through. So you're going to have to pipe together 40 straws to push it through there. So you need to be technologically ready to load balance between different types of routes, different types of connections to different partners to have that success rate. So sometimes this also means foregoing more margin or the good margins that we've already sustained or agreed upon, and we'll take in a loss just to push the messages through sometimes, because the customer experience is more important than our bottom line in that particular day, because it's a high intent channel. If they have success on Black Friday, they will hopefully have success on other days or surrounding days as well, where volume or DPS isn't that much of an issue. So it's both a process-related solution to that question. It's a technological solution from a platform perspective. It's a partnership thing. Basically, Black Friday doesn't lean on a singular thing. You have to have multiple different instances of generating success for us to make it happen.
Yeah, and I think what's really important here as well to, the marketers watching us is, okay, you have your Black Friday campaign prepared. And this is what Anneli told last time here as well. You can have everything prepared, but you haven't talked to your operator, let's say, and then you want to send out 50,000 messages with one campaign and nothing goes through. Red flags everywhere. So this is also important to not only think of not only the technical side of the campaign itself, but also, cooperate with your operator to make sure that it actually goes through as well.
Yeah, exactly. Do you meet the actual requirements? Do you meet the registration? Yeah. Do you have enough credit on your account? You'd be surprised how often that's an issue. So people will have I have 50 euros on my account. I want to send out 100,000 message campaign. That usually doesn't cost 50. So you're going to end up, sending out 200 messages and go why is my campaign failing? And you pretty much go, you kind of need to pay for it.
Yeah, well, but to be honest, that's an honest mistake. And why I'm saying that is because I have done that mistake myself. When I'm sending out the Messaging Maven event reminders on SMS, because I was, I don't know, it's just, it gets lost in the process. So this is why I also just create yourself a list of things you have to do before, or you have to check. We actually put out the checklist last week, what you have to check before sending out the campaign. We can actually send it on the email as well to everyone on the community, but make a checklist of every step that you have to do. And one of the things we included there, one of the almost last things was check if you have the money for it or the funds for it. Yeah.
I don't actually have a credit card to use. I've built a 3-month process for a campaign and I forgot to allocate the budget for it. Happens more often than you would like.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, we have some more questions.
let's see what Katria H. Are there specific SMS automation tools or platforms that you recommend for managing Black Friday campaigns?
And what features should businesses look for in such tools?
Cool. For anybody watching, there was like an overlay from a Zoom window, so you couldn't actually see, but anyways. Well, first and foremost, since we have an API, you can connect it to pretty much any service you use.
Yeah.
Right? You build your triggers on your side, just add it to the API touch sort of endpoint and just send it out via that. So you can create a lot of automation. If you require sort of like more bespoke flows or things like that, you could look at our native integration, for example, the one we have with Salesforce, or you can also look at the integrations we have through Zapier. So you can use multiple different types of integrations via that. But in general, 90% of the time, you'll be in a situation where you'll have the ability to just send it via the API, and that will create the automation essentially for you on that front as well. So most of the time shouldn't be a problem. If you require more specific or more tailored solutions, then we've built custom integration for our clients, specifically for their platforms that they're asking for. We've also gotten the Salesforce integrations, Zapier integrations, and we'll be looking into more integrations next year, probably as well. So there's a bunch of ways to do it from a technical perspective as well.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, let me see if we have any more questions.
Let us see.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's actually a good one.
What, last words weren't good ones?
Yeah.
Just kidding.
I'm sorry.
Just kidding. Okay, so how can small businesses with limited resources compete effectively in Black Friday marketplace using multi-channel marketing? Want to take this one?
Yeah. So this is where what I mentioned earlier is think if you have to be in every channel. So choose the channels that are the most effective, that bring the most results in, And also I would say use as much of one resource in different places as possible. So this is also in omni-channel, you can have one message displayed in different places at the same time. So if you have limited resources, you have to unfortunately have limited, possibilities of doing things as well. But it's more of a question of mindset that do you have to be everywhere? Do you really have to do everything? Look at where your customer is. Probably if you're a small business, your customer might even not be, let's say on Google that much. Maybe they are really, really in specific channels. TikTok, maybe they are there. Maybe if they've made a purchase, they're on your SMS anyway. Email, maybe. I don't even know if you're a small business, if you have an email platform. So really just choose the platforms that are the most effective and where your customer is. It's no point of being everywhere if your customer is not on every channel.
Again, no TikTok then, it seems.
No TikTok.
Fair enough.
Okay, we have one more question.
Cool. Michael Power. Hey, Michael. Is it worth the cost to send emojis in SMS? Do you have more impact than text alone? That's a good question, though. Thanks, Michael. Michael is a longtime friend.
Oops, sorry.
Oh, and Anurag as well. I'm going to want that question. Anyways, so to answer Michael's questions, it depends. As usual with business messaging, it always depends. No, the point is that it comes down to, does it accentuate your message in a way that actually delivers effect? If you're just putting it in the end of a text message, maybe not. If it actually creates some form of an emotion, if it creates some form of a better part of engagement, if it significantly enhances your text message, then go for it. The only point is that if you're using an emoji, then what Michael is alluding to is the fact that when you use something out of the GSM character set, you're going to revert to Unicode. Unicode means usually, ballpark idea usually means 3x the same cost as it would an SMS, because technically an SMS in GSM is 160 characters, in Unicode it's 60. So when you actually get translated into Unicode, you'll be sending one text message as 3 text messages, paying 3 times the cost. That's what he's alluding to. So if you can make it worthwhile, if the business actually makes sense, and if that emoji enhances your text message, absolutely. Also take into consideration that if you add an emoji and send out 3 times the cost, Still going to be pretty much the same cost as as a Facebook ad. Still going to be pretty much the same cost as, or even less than a Google ad. So in that context, go for it.
Yeah. But I think, we're going to get to the last question in a second. I
Yeah.
just wanted to touch down on the emoji.
Yeah.
In customer communication in general, I think it's so thin line between being cringy and actually, nailing it. We've seen so many examples, even just the easiest example on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
You see some of the, I don't know, big CEOs or whatever posting. They do very, very, not a lot of posting. And then all of a sudden it's emojis everywhere. It's a lot of sprinkly stuff around it. And it's the same with SMS. You do it one way and then you start to do it like over excessively. So really find the balance between it and think of, do you actually need it? And do you have to have it there?
Basically, if it's an enhancement or a detriment in a way.
Exactly.
So I'll just stick to dad jokes.
Yeah.
It's more effective for me.
We're going to take the last one.
Yes. Hey, Anurag. Are AI-based algorithms actually effective in identifying the right channel strategy for every customer individually? I would say not. Most of the time, if you're thinking about AI, then it is very strong at identifying patterns and identifying segments, identifying, based on certain criteria specifically. But when you're getting into nuance and especially going identity-based marketing, I don't think personally that it's far enough to be effective enough to have a substantial impact on your bottom line. But then again, I would never say that you shouldn't play around with it because, at least in my opinion, considering, again, how much scammers use AI, how much scam quality has risen specifically because of AI, then, maybe it's worth trying it out and understanding what works, what doesn't work. I'd just be careful. AI, I'd say, is not the holy grail everybody sort of makes it out to be these days.
I agree.
It, at the end of the day, is a tool. I do a lot of personality tests for my teams because they help you indicate certain aspects of their personality. I then don't take it as the absolute truth because most of the time you have to take it with a giant grain of salt. And I do the same thing with AI as well. Utilize it to identify whether something works or doesn't work, but then A/B test to try to understand and validate. AI will give you an answer which you then need to validate. It's not going to be the whole truth. So I would say that no, I don't think it's super effective, but I would still use it and try to identify where it works, where it doesn't work, and where it's the most effective in giving you a better understanding of things. I'm not anti-AI. I think it is very much the future.
Anti-AI.
Anti-AI. But I am quite skeptical of it at the same time and the actual quality that it can bring.
I agree.
Cool.
Yeah.
Anyways, today actually time flew and it ended up being a long one. Thank you everybody for tuning in. If you have any more questions, as per usual, hit me up on LinkedIn, hit Katria up on LinkedIn, find us on LinkedIn. That's where we most of the time are. I'm not on TikTok, just joking. So if you have any more questions, anything else, join us the next time, share more questions, reach out to us, and have a great one. Thank you everybody and see you next time. Toodaloo.